Okay, happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm really excited that everyone is here. I'm happy to see these wonderful faces. I'm happy that we have the opportunity to speak with students who have really taken the process of high school and use it to the best of their ability. As you guys know, we are Blue Ivy Coaching. We work with students in college counseling, but also to help them reach their highest academic potential, right? And so we want to make sure that during the process, the difficult process of navigating the college admissions, essentially landscape, that we're able to not only guide students, but also make sure that they have the resources, information, and everything at their fingertips so that we can help them in this process. But it also takes a lot of work. And so I have three students here who have been with us for a really long time. We have two from Miami and one from Texas, and they have been through this process. They are already seniors, have already committed to their universities. And so I'll have everybody introduce themselves, and we're really here to just hear their stories. And also they'll be able to provide advice for students who may be wondering when they should start this process of really thinking of when to take the next steps, right? And so, Amparo, we'd love to start with you. If you could tell us your full name, where you're from, your grade, when you started with Blue Ivy, where you're studying, and your major. Go for it.
Perfect. Okay. My name is Amparo Torres Platt. I'm a senior at Gulliver Preparatory in Miami, Florida. And I started working with Blue Ivy around 3 years ago when I was a sophomore. And I'm currently committing to Vanderbilt for child development.
Amazing. And what are you going to be studying at Vanderbilt?
Um, well, I'm going to be majoring in child development. So it's kind of like a combination of psychology and sociology and different things like that.
Amazing. Awesome. And Felipe, tell us a little about yourself. The same thing, your name, where you're from, where you committed.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. Hello, everyone. My name is Felipe Hinojosa. I live in Houston, Texas. And yeah, I'm a senior at Strake Jesuit College Preparatory. And I'll be attending Northwestern University next fall. And I plan on studying economics and statistics. And I also started with Blue Ivy during my sophomore year, so 2 or 3 years ago.
Amazing. Thank you, Felipe. And Gonzalo.
And hi, my name is Gonzalo Garcia, and I'm from Miami, but I was actually born in Spain, and I moved here when I was really young. And currently, I go to Mass Academy, and I want to study finance in UMich. I'm going to the University of Michigan, and I'm studying in the School of Business in Ross. And I started working with Blue Ivy 2.5 years ago, in the summer of sophomore year.
Awesome. Thank you, Gon. So it's great to hear your backgrounds, where you guys have committed. I want to understand a little bit more about what kind of motivated you to seek the support of Blue Ivy Coaching. What were you hoping to achieve in this time? Felipe, let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you. So I kind of started thinking where I wanted to apply to college during my sophomore year. I was looking at the top schools and listening to peers who are a little bit older than me. I started realizing, how many moving parts, make up your whole application. And I realized, it's really hard to get into these top schools. You have your grades, your SAT, your extracurriculars, your essays, kind of all these things that come together to form your narrative. And with school and sports, it's kind of hard to keep track of them at times. So I was seeking some type of external support to help me bring all this together and help me form my narrative to best fit my application. So during sophomore year, I started with SAT tutoring with Blue Ivy. So I started, I think, once a week with my math and reading coach. And yeah, I had a great experience with that. I think something that was really helpful from my coaches was how, um, specific their lessons were towards me. Like every lesson or every class, they had a lesson plan prepared and with practice questions, which I think was super useful to adapt to my strengths and weaknesses specifically. And then, moving on to my junior year, I started, thinking about where I wanted to apply specifically, thinking about all the essays. I think for me, the hardest part about the college process was writing all the essays. if you're planning on applying to 15 or 20 schools, that's 40 or even 50 essays you have to write. And I think, you might have good ideas in your head, but putting them into an essay that's, both creative, but also, shows your true self is something that might be challenging for, any high school student. So I think my coach that helped me with my essays, I think really helped me in bringing out those ideas and putting them into paper. Also, having a scheduled plan, a schedule to follow to keep my essays on time was super helpful. And yeah.
Awesome. I love it. That was a really complete answer. You touched upon a lot of the different aspects of what is needed for a specific profile and what universities are also looking for. And so, Amparo, what do you think? Why do you think that you wanted to seek support, extra support, and what were you hoping to achieve during that time?
Well, I think I was just talking with my parents during that time, and I did have counseling at school, but I honestly was just feeling very overwhelmed by the whole process, simply because I feel like it's just gotten so complicated. You, like Felipe said, you need SAT scores, and you need your grades at school, you need extracurriculars, you need a lot of things to kind of build that profile or narrative for yourself. So I just thought that having a resource outside of school would be really helpful to organize all of those things and help me build what I wanted to achieve, hopefully by senior year.
Awesome. And Gonzalo, what about you?
So for me, actually, pretty similar to Felipe. I was really motivated to build like the best profile I could. I wanted to like have a really balanced profile. I wanted to balance my extracurriculars with my academic studies, and I wanted a good SAT score as well. And I think that like I was really, really motivated to get to that level and get that profile really, really like balanced. And I did mostly all of this to be able to get into colleges and have options. And obviously, Michigan was one of the big ones, as well as like UF and other colleges. And just being able to have like a decision is what I was really looking for. And what I really love about Blue Ivy is that I'm able to connect with my teacher and my counselors. Like, for example, with my SAT teacher, at the beginning of the lessons, he would ask me what I'm struggling with the most, if I need help with anything specific. And with my counselors while writing my essays, they would always ask me the same thing. They would ask me about my life, how I'm doing, and that I think that's really important, honestly, because it's not only always about getting the work done, but also making sure that you're getting the work done in a right state of mind and doing it the right way. So yeah, I think that's really important.
Gonzalo, you touched upon something that is really important. Like this process is not just about being robots and making sure you get everything done, but you guys are in high school, right? Like you're managing a lot of different aspects in your life. You're growing, you're in peak puberty, you are learning new things. I mean, in high school, it's a really big change from middle school, and you get to high school and they're already talking about college. But a big part of this is being able to navigate this process and kind of take out the stress of it. And so during your guys' time of working with Blue Ivy, what do you think you enjoyed the most about working with either your coach or the Blue Ivy team? Like, where would you say that success really stemmed from, and like the part that you feel like you always remember? Amparo, we can start with you.
I think for me, the most valuable part of my experience was working with Marcus. I really felt like I had someone who saw what I was passionate about, and it really made everything that I did throughout my college process. It made everything feel like it wasn't something that I had to do or something that I was doing to check all the boxes, but it was really just about like finding what I was passionate about and then making it something more tangible and like actually putting it all that effort into projects. Like it felt like someone actually like saw what I liked and then we were able to work together and it was just like very fun.
Awesome. I love that you use the word fun. It is a fun process if we make it fun, right? And so Felipe, what would you say is your response to what you enjoyed the most about either working with a coach or the team or your process in general?
Yeah, I honestly agree with Umberto a lot that the whole college process isn't about just trying to do the most things possible, but rather finding something that you really like or are passionate about and expanding on that or bringing it to the next level. And I think working with Blue Ivy, they have a lot of strategies or ideas that, even if you have some niche passion or something or hobby, they can take that and do something with it so that it looks good on your application. Maybe start a club at school or volunteer with it or start a project at home. So for me specifically, I'm interested in like finance and stuff like that, for example. So I started a Substack. If you're not familiar with that, it's a platform online where you can write newsletters and publish them. And I think that looked good on my resume. It was also a good experience for me to learn how to express my thoughts on paper also. So yeah, just I think they helped me enjoy the process more, I guess, as you both touched on, and expanding on the things that I like rather than forcing myself to do things just to I guess look good, which isn't the idea.
Awesome. Something that's a common theme that all three of you said is that you felt really heard, right? And you were taken seriously when people were asking you, like, what is it that you really like? And so this is, I think, a great transition into kind of understanding your journey of where you started and where you're at now. So I'm curious to understand and know about you three. Is did you go into this process thinking you were going to major one thing and then maybe changing it at the end, or the things that you wanted to study, you just kept developing that through the process? Like, I want to understand kind of the mind shift during this entire process, and if there was something that you were realized, oh, this is actually what I want to do. Amparo, I see you shaking your head. We'll start with you.
Yeah, when I started working with Blue Ivy, I was in sophomore year, and when we first started, we did a bunch of like aptitude tests and things to see like what I was passionate about and maybe naturally good at, and then things that maybe I needed more skills for. And that was really helpful because I was able to see that a lot of the careers that I was looking at was kind of like human centered, and it was there was a lot about service. So I kind of went into it with that idea that I wanted to work directly with people. And then at the same time, I was also just starting off volunteering and working in the classroom with children, and that was my biggest extracurricular. So all of that kind of culminated, and I was able to figure out that I wanted to work in the classroom with kids, and eventually Blue Ivy helped me find a major that like ended up working out. So now I can study child development.
Amazing. I love it, Amparo. Gonzalo, what about you?
So actually, funny story, but I started with the idea of going into sports management because since I was little, I always had the idea that I had to do something related to sports. I've always loved it, and I couldn't get it out of my head that I had to study something related to it, which I will. But I ended up deciding that finance was the better idea because I can always do a minor in sports management, and I've actually done an internship in sports management over the summer, which Olivia helped me with. And it's just good to be able to do two things that I really like and enjoy, and knowing that I could go any way with it, knowing that like they both combine, like being able to do finance related to sports would be the dream here. But yeah, that's kind of what my point of view is.
Amazing. And what about you, Felipe? Was it always finance and economics?
Yeah, honestly, for me, it was debating between engineering or finance and economics. But, like from sophomore year to senior year, I kind of realized that my extracurriculars were more like leaning towards the econ or finance. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, like Blue Ivy kind of helped me expand on those. And I realized I was more passionate about, finance and economics and those type of things. So I was willing to, take more of my time to expand those activities. And yeah, that's why I didn't decide to go into engineering.
Okay, amazing. And so when we talk about, and I know you guys have probably heard this a million times, but for people who don't really understand this part of things, we talk a lot about that your profile needs to be focused, your profile needs to have a vision. The university needs to be able to understand when they look at your transcript, when they look at your extracurricular profile, your academic achievements, when they take a look at those things, there has to be a narrative, right? We want to make sure that there is something that makes sense. There's a story here. And so what I want to know about you three, which I know that you've done amazing things during your time in high school, but how do you think that you were able to accomplish this specific goal in high school of making your profile have a narrative, have a vision? And so with that, what type of extracurriculars did you do in high school that you think made you stand out to the universities who accepted to you? Gonzalo, we can start with you.
So actually, I think like the way I was able to accomplish a good profile, like mixing all the extracurriculars and academics, is I think you really have to choose something you're passionate about. In this case, for me, it was finance and sports. And I really think that having that passion, you do everything with like you want to do everything. It's like you strive to be like to have your profile the best it could be. And it's really just good to focus everything around what you really want to study and what you know you like. And colleges love to see that you do things related to your study area. Like for example, joining your school finance club or making a club that's related to something you want to study. The really important thing, the most I would say the most important thing is finding an internship that fits you, that you know that you want to do. Not only because it's good for colleges to see, but it also gives you a taste of what it is going to be like in college or maybe out of college. And it's good to really end up figuring out what you want after college. So I think it's just focusing all your extracurriculars and your academics on your passion.
Okay, amazing. And Amparo, I know you had a lot of years of consistent work with Breakthrough. Tell me what you think that you did during your time in high school that allowed for universities to see that vision throughout your academic achievements and your application.
Um, I think what really kind of helps set that extracurricular apart from maybe other people who had volunteered was that, yeah, I think Gonzalo said it's very true that colleges can kind of see when you're not doing it with the like right intention or the passion behind it. So it's really about finding things that make you happy and then being able to show your dedication through that. And for me, I found that through Breakthrough, because I was able to connect perfectly the passion that I have for like teaching and education and being in the classroom and kind of forming those relationships with the kids. And then also with Blue Ivy, I was able to kind of go beyond the typical role of a volunteer. And I was able to find the inspiration to create a fundraiser for the organization that ended up raising $65,000. So that was like my one of my biggest projects. And I think without Blue Ivy, I wouldn't have been able to kind of think beyond my role as a volunteer.
Amazing, Amparo. And a little birdie told me that you raised more money this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, they decided to do the event again because what started with an idea of mine and maybe doing it somewhere, maybe by my house, they actually introduced me to um, someone who has access to a hotel here in Miami, and the event just kind of started getting bigger and bigger. And this year, they did a marketplace in conjunction with the music part, which I had organized, and we were able to raise around double of what we had last year. So the event just kind of grew.
Amazing, Amparo. I love to hear it. It was a wonderful event, by the way. And Felipe, tell us about how your vision was clear in your application, or what was the extracurricular that you think really made it something that was clear to universities and to setting your narrative as it was.
Yeah, so for me, I think freshman year, I didn't really know what I wanted to get into. So what I did is I joined. They have this club for at my school, so I joined a bunch of a bunch of the clubs. And then sophomore year, I kind of narrowed that down to a couple of clubs. But what I also did is I started a club called Math on the Border, where we essentially tutor um, kids in local public schools in areas of math and English. I think that was a great thing to have in my resume, and I think I learned a lot from it. I think also the progression of it. So I started off pretty small. We would tutor 5 or 10 kids, and now we're tutoring like over 100 or 200 kids, which is great. From you
Wow.
know yeah, over like we started with just Hispanic kids, and now we have kids from Persia and other countries, which is great. And then more on the finance side, I think last summer I had an internship at an asset manager called Van Eck. That was also a great experience. But I think one of the things that's hard is back to math on the border. Working with my coach, he helped me kind of develop that into a bigger thing, like scale it. And I think that's what looks good on your application. Also, being able to find something you're passionate about and scaling it, I think is super important.
Amazing. That was, you beat me to it, Felipe. The being able to scale something that you already have, Amparo, same thing, and Gonzalo as well. These are projects that were ideas that then became real, that then were scaled and became publicly known, right? And so you were able to receive public recognition for the work that you've put in. And so we've talked a lot about extracurriculars, what it takes, how to say our vision, how to see our narrative. But there's a really important part that we need to make sure that you have first in the application. And I know all three of you really put a lot of work into this portion. And so the famous SAT and ACT, right? And so we always talk about how we can have these extracurriculars, we can do amazing things in and outside of the classroom, but we really have to have the unweighted GPA and the SAT and the rigorous course load, right? We need to have those things, SAT or ACT. I know the ACT is really popular in Texas as well. And so there's this idea that maybe if we just do a few things, we'll be able to get in, but we really have to understand that the foundation is academics. And that's when you get through the door, and then we see those amazing narrative vision extracurriculars. So I wanted to start with Amparo of tell us, and like we really want to see your progress. Like I know you guys have had so much progress. So tell us about what you, if you remember, initial SAT score, and then what was your highest SAT score. And the highest can be the super score.
Yeah, I took my first PSAT in sophomore year and I'd gotten an 1190.
Mhm.
And then I took my first SAT at the beginning of my junior year and I got a 1360. And then at the end of my junior year in June, I ended up getting a 1530.
All right. That's amazing, Amparo. I love it. What do you think was a part of your SAT experience that allowed you to do this? And how do you feel like you're prepared during this process?
I think it was very consistent tutoring. I was able to communicate very often with my tutors from Blue Ivy, and it was actually really helpful to have two because I had one for math and one for English. So it felt very specialized, and I felt like the one that did math like knew a lot about what he was talking about, and same for English. So yeah, I was just being able to see them very consistently, and kind of like timeline wise, I did take it right at the beginning of my junior year. And
Mhm.
then I just kind of felt like throughout the whole year, I was able to keep working with those same tutors. And then by the end of the school year, get to the score that I wanted.
Okay, amazing. You really put in a lot of work, Amparo. That's amazing. So it was 1190 to a 1530.
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely amazing. Gonzalo, the SAT is our enemy. What did we do? What did we start with and where did we end? Because I saw this firsthand and you killed it, my friend. What happened during this time? Where did you start with? Where did you end? And how did you get there?
So actually, funny story, I was never a good test taker and I've never been a good test taker. Mostly for the SAT, it was my nightmare. But I feel like I went into it head first and I was able to do good. My first practice test was actually a 980, really, really low. And then my first actual SAT was a 1190, which isn't bad. And then I was able to get it all the way up to 1440, which is a super score of 790 in math and 615 reading, which clearly you can see where the strong side is. But I really just think that even if you're having a hard time with the SAT, which could happen to anyone, the most important thing is taking your time. You have a lot of time, you have a lot of like you could take it a lot of times, and it really is just important to study as much as you can, but not to stress yourself out, because if you block your mind and you study too much one day, then the next day you're not going to want to study. And I feel like it's all based on how motivated you are to study and how motivated you are to get a good grade. And that's, for me, the most important thing. And also, just my tutors were honestly great from Blue Ivy. I had super good tutors. My English teacher was actually known to be the best English SAT tutor, which I was really grateful for that. And my math one switched a couple times, but they were both great. They were really smart, and they actually helped me get really high math scores. So I'm happy with both of them. And honestly, just hard process, but it was worth it at the end of the day. So
Awesome.
happy with that.
We're very proud of you for that. And Gonzalo, there was something that I know that you did during that process. You've also taught other students to do that as well. You studied a lot on your own too, right? Like you understood that you had to take the classes, but if you weren't doing the work by yourself, that was only 50% of it, was attending the classes and being present. So, what advice would you give to somebody that is doing the SAT, and a little bit about that work that you have to do outside of the SAT, of the SAT courses?
So actually, I think the most important thing for the SAT, at least for me, now that I'm actually teaching sometimes to some students math, and I'm tutoring math, not always for SAT, but I think just the most important thing is a tutor can never fully make you understand or help you get like the best score ever, because they don't have enough time. Sessions can be an hour or an hour and a half max, and that's just not enough time to teach every single SAT topic. And in the SAT, there's millions of topics, 1,500 questions, and different types of questions that you could get. And honestly, the best way to study is by yourself after the tutor teaches it to you. Obviously, it's really important for the tutor to teach it to you, which is what happened in my case. But if you don't put in your own work after, then the tutoring is never going to work, because you need to practice to remember it. If you don't practice after you get it taught to you, then you're never going to remember it. And that's when you start struggling in the SAT.
Yeah, amazing. I know that the SAT, the ACT, they're very much like a language, and you can be in class as much as you want. But the truth is, if you want to learn French, you need to immerse yourself in an area, in a place that they're speaking French all day long, right? And the same thing is for SAT. Amparo, I know you wanted to add something, so go for it.
Yeah, I think just one of my biggest tips for the SAT was at the beginning, I felt like a very nervous test taker. I just kind of was always worried about whether they would ask me a question that I didn't know at all or I had never studied before. And I felt like it was kind of those thoughts that at the beginning kind of held me down and weren't letting me get the score that I wanted because I would kind of freak out when I was taking it. So I think what was really helpful is that finally, when I took it in June and I felt like I had gotten the score that I wanted, that was kind of the first test where I kind of let myself go and just said, okay, this is going to go the way that it goes. And if anything, I still have time to take it again if I want to. That was the biggest thing for me because I didn't feel the like constant pressure while I was taking the exam of whether it goes badly or not. So that was really helpful for me.
Amazing. That's great advice, Amparo. And Felipe, did you do SAT or ACT? And where did you start and where did you end?
Yeah, I did the SAT as well. And yeah, I had a big progression as well. So actually, my first test was 1280, and then I got it up to a 1510 at the end. Can you remind me the platform that Blue Ivy uses for the SAT?
Sure. So it's Test Innovators.
Yeah, test innovators. I think that's super useful, like being able to work with that, because I realized that those questions were on the same level or a little harder than the actual SAT, because the SAT has like free like practice questions, but those are a little bit easier. Like the practice tests are a little bit easier in my opinion. For example, I got like a 1570 on one of the practice tests, but that doesn't really translate to the real one. I think the test innovators questions are really good practice. But yeah, I think working with a tutor is great because they teach you how to approach the question, but it also comes down to doing repetitions, doing a lot of practice questions. So then on the actual SAT, you get a question and okay, this is what I have to do for this type of question, because there's only a certain amount of ways they can ask a question. So if you practice to a certain level where you know like what to do in each type of question, it just comes down to changing the numbers essentially. Obviously, there's a couple curveballs and you have to adapt to that. But yeah, I think repetition is super important. Um, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, practice makes perfect. I think that's kind of what all three of you have said. And well, one, congratulations on your improvement because you guys all had massive improvements, but you're also showing people that you can, right? Like you can go from a score that you may not be proud of, but work for it and be like, all right, I can do this. A 980 is just the first start, right? An 1190 is just the first start, but we can do the work and we can put in the what it takes. And Gonzalo, I know you said that motivation is a big part of it, which I do think is true, but all three of you didn't really just demonstrate motivation, but you demonstrated discipline, right? Maybe sometimes you weren't excited to practice, maybe sometimes you weren't excited to go to class, but you showed up anyways. And all three of you have done that during your entire high school career, and you demonstrated that through great excellence, but also universities were able to recognize that as well. And so as we go towards kind of the last reflections, what I think is really important is understanding who you've become through this process and what really shined, because all three of you obviously have. I mean, I can literally see it through the screen. And so tell me how you guys think this process helped you grow as a person. Amparo, we can start with you.
Um, I think, I mean, honestly, I feel like one of the biggest things that I've gotten from this whole college experience is that I've been able to find what kind of my purpose is or what I want to do as like a career, and what I think would really fulfill me as I grow into like adulthood. Blue Ivy has just been really, really helpful in finding those things that I'm passionate about and then turning them into something that I can actually put on paper and show to people, not just like that I'm passionate about it, but like actually show it through action. Um, and yeah, it's really just helped me get to being able to go to one of my dream universities and with a major that I'm very passionate about.
Amparo, can you tell us the scholarship that you got from the university that you've been accepted to?
Yeah, it was kind of a surprise because I hadn't applied for it, but I got the Cornelius Vanderbilt scholarship for Vanderbilt.
What does that mean, Amparo?
It means that they pay for the full tuition of the school for the 4 years.
Amazing. Amazing. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And what do you think was the most and I'll stay with you, Amparo, because we're kind of like tying everything together. What do you think was the most meaningful moment for you in this process?
Um, I don't, I think one of the most meaningful moments was right after when I had gotten accepted and I called Marcus and he was just so happy for me and he was so proud.
Mhm.
That was a very happy moment because we knew that like the hard work had paid off and all those like times where we couldn't think of something to write about in our essays and stuff like that. I think it made it come very full circle.
Amazing. That's awesome. Congratulations, Amparo. And Felipe, I'd love to know a little bit about how you feel you grew as a person during this process and what was the most emotional or meaningful moment for you?
Yeah, I'll start with the second part. I think the most meaningful part, or I guess, was like realizing that my like personal essay was finished. Like you're reading it over and over again, redrafting, changing little things, but then there's a point where you just kind of realize that it's done, and I think that's a super special moment because you've worked a lot on it, and it shows a lot about you that you haven't really like known how to express. But then through this essay, you kind of learn about yourself as well. I think that's super special. But yeah, overall, I think I learned to be, I think, more disciplined, more motivated in general, and kind of narrow down what I want to do in terms of my career path. But also, looking back, super grateful to have been able to been in this position and grow as a person through my activities, through everything. I think it's stressful in the moment, but if you find something to keep you going, something that motivates you. For example, for the SAT, I had like a poster on my wall that was like goal of 1500, so that kept me motivating when I was studying. But yeah, just enjoy the process, and it's not so bad once you're on the other side of the hill, I think.
Felipe, that's awesome. I have a question. Did you take off your sticker when you got the 1500?
Yeah, I did. It was a good moment. Maybe that was my most meaningful one.
I bet that was a good moment. That's amazing. I love that. Just seeing your goals right in front of you and making sure that you want to work for that every single day. Look, you guys are even making me red. I'm so excited. And Gonzalo, you tell me, what do you think about this process that helped you grow as a person throughout, and what was the most meaningful moment for you?
So I think the most important thing that I learned working with Blue Ivy was the fact that I was able to manage my time so well, because academics are really important, but so is having your own life and doing something you love. And as I said, something I love is playing soccer and playing sports. And I also love like doing things related to sports and finance. And just being able to find that time was something that I wasn't able to do in sophomore and freshman year. And end of sophomore year, I would say, and junior year is where I really got like that idea that time management was one of the most important things during your high school journey, because you have to be able to have time to do everything and not feel like you're missing things, not feel stressed out. I feel like that's a really, really important thing. And honestly, through time management, I was able to get to most of the goals that I had, which one of the big ones was getting into UMich. It has always been a school that I loved. I love the programs. I love everything. And as we know, it's a big sports school too, so it actually just fit perfectly.
Yeah, congrats on March Madness. You guys are the ones that helped me win my bracket. Well, second
Thank
place, it's fine. But you mish all the way. And so I think this is a great place to end this conversation with one last thing. If and how Felipe said, now we're on the other side. Now we've reached our acceptances. Now everything that we worked for, we finally are able to see with just one little acceptance letter, like all the work that you put in. And so, Amparo, I'll start with you. If you were to give advice to somebody who is just starting off with this journey, what would you tell them?
I think I would tell them two things. Number one would be to trust the process and really just also don't compare yourself to like everyone else, because everyone has a different path that they're following and everyone is doing things at a different speed. What's most important, I think, for me was to find the things that made me happy and then funnel them and funnel all my efforts into putting those on paper. I think that was very, very important to me. And yeah, just trust the process and eventually you'll get there. Sometimes it feels very long, but you do get there.
Awesome. And Amparo, when do you think you would start thinking about this journey?
Um, I I started thinking of it around sophomore year. I think that was the perfect time for me because I was able to establish those things that made me happy, and then I had a perfect amount of time to make a plan for myself and follow through eventually for senior year.
Okay, amazing. I love it. Felipe, what is the advice that you would give to somebody who is just starting off this journey? A freshman, let's say a freshman.
Yeah, I would say to start early, start thinking about it as early as you can. Not stress yourself, but start thinking of what you want to do, because I mean your grades like even freshman year are like pretty important. So, start thinking if you want to go to, a really top school, you need to, start thinking about keeping your grades up. And um I would say, yeah, start early, but obviously don't. I think starting early shouldn't stress you. It should actually like relieve you, because if you start too late, then you're gonna press yourself a lot with time. So starting early and building up the momentum, I think is really useful. and just enjoy the process. Is all I can say. Yeah.
Amazing. That's great advice, Felipe. Y Gonzalo, what about you?
So the main advice I would give for people is kind of a mix of what Amparo and Felipe said, honestly, is just start early, take your time, don't rush anything, don't get too stressed. And obviously, what I've been saying throughout the meeting, which is follow your passion, do what you love. And I feel like that's the most important thing because if you do what you love, you're always going to do it better than anything else. And that's really an important thing in the college journey. Just being able to do what you love will always make things easier and you will always end up being happier. So that main advice I would give is to just follow your passion and obviously uh, manage your time and start early so you don't do everything rushed. But yeah.
Amazing. You guys all gave such really good advice. And I know that you have also had the opportunity to speak with other people in your school, outside of school, who are younger than you and push for that advice too. Like, we don't need to stress about this process if we have an idea of what we need to do, right? We don't need to start thinking about our university list the second we walk into school, into high school, but we need to start understanding what are our options and how can we make sure that we keep ourselves open and informed. And so I'm really grateful for all three of you for joining this. You three are amazing. You're such great stories in this process because we really have been with you for quite a bit of time. And I thank you three for doing this. And I just wanted to open up just for a few minutes because I know you guys still have school, you still have a million things. But if anybody wanted to ask any specific questions, we'll leave for 1 or 2 minutes specifically to anyone. Remember that Amparo is going to Vanderbilt, Gonzalo is going to UMich, and Felipe will be going to Northwestern. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night.